Christmas morning had always meant something different to me. Quiet reflection. A moment to pause the rush of the world. But that year, it felt more like a production. A poorly scripted play, performed in my own living room. The fire crackled. In the hearth, casting a warm amber glow across the carefully decorated space. Mira had insisted we holiday-proof everything. Every garland, every snow-dusted candle had been chosen with meticulous intent, as if aesthetics could overwrite the rot festering beneath the surface. I sat beside her on the plush cream love seat, pretending the cushion between us wasn't weighted with the ghost of everything we hadn't said in months. Her family had descended on us early, like a seasonal storm. Iris, Mira's mother, filled every inch of air with sharp-tongued commentary, the drapes, the roast. The way I tied my tie, Gerald, her father, held a glass of scotch like a scepter, smirking at me like he'd won something I wasn't even aware. We were competing for Talia, and Zara floated around like they owned the place, dropping gifts and snide remarks with the same effortless entitlement. They'd never really seen me as family. Only as the man who carried bags, fetched coats, and stayed conveniently quiet. But I wasn't quiet anymore. Not inside. Not in the way that mattered. I had spent months watching, listening, preparing, and today, on the day they thought they were burying me beneath the weight of their collective smugness, I was going to give them a memory they'd never forget. They just didn't know it yet. "Merry Christmas," Mira said, her voice syrupy sweet as she handed me a red envelope. Her. An Ayal's painted crimson. A perfect match to her lipstick. Both of which drew eyes away from the coldness in her gaze. Her smile stretched just wide enough to look convincing to the camera, one of her cousins holding it up, recording the moment for posterity. The room buzzed with champagne bubbles and carefully choreographed laughter. It was all noise, meaningless, polished noise. I took the envelope with steady hands. I already knew what was inside. I'd seen the draft on our shared printer tray 2 weeks ago, before she quickly pulled it away and claimed it was just a contract for a friend. I hadn't said anything then. Just nodded, smiled, memorized the watermark. But now, when she slid it into my palm, there was no hesitation in her movements. That alone confirmed what I had known for weeks. She wanted to humiliate me. Publicly, with flair, I peeled the flap open slowly, letting the crimson paper fall away like shed skin. Inside were several sheets. Legal language, courthouse stamps. Her signature neatly inked in blue, divorce papers, served not by a stranger in a quiet office, but by the woman I'd built a life with, surrounded by the people who had always rooted for our end. The moment I held them up and let my eyes skim the header, the room erupted. Cheers, full-blown clapping. Like I'd just been awarded some ironic participation trophy. Gerald raised his glass in a mock toast. Talia leaned into Myra's shoulder, laughing into her curls. Zara snapped a photo. Yes, a photo. While Iris dabbed the corner of her eye with a tissue. Not out of sorrow, but the kind of theatrical satisfaction people reserve for movie endings. I didn't say a word. I didn't flinch. That was the part that caught them off guard. They expected me to explode. To break, to stammer. Mira had probably rehearsed that scenario in her mind 100 times. Me sputtering, her victorious, her family circling her like protective lions. But instead, I sat perfectly still. I looked at the papers. Then I looked at her. My gaze steady, unshaken. She seemed confused by my stillness. Her smile faltered. Just a fraction. Enough for me to see it. That first crack. She leaned in just a touch. Voice lower this time, probably for dramatic effect. "You always hated surprises, didn't you, Jonah?" I gave her a small smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. The kind that says, "I see you, and I'm not playing your game anymore." I didn't speak, yet. I let the silence linger. Let it stretch just long enough to become uncomfortable. That's the thing about people like Mira. They thrive on spectacle, but silence? That unsettles them. Cousins shifted in their seats. The camera phone lowered slightly. Even Gerald's chuckle softened to a confused throat clear. They had no idea what I had been preparing. No idea what kind of man I'd become when pushed far enough. For the longest time, I thought being good meant being accommodating. That a man should protect peace Even at his own expense, but peace without dignity? That's just surrender, and I'd surrendered too long. I folded the papers neatly and slid them back into the envelope. I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each person who had clapped when I was handed that red envelope. Like it was a trophy, I wanted them to remember this moment. Not because they had won, but because they were about to lose something much greater. "Thank you," I said finally, my voice even and clear. "It's thoughtful." Mira tilted her head. "You're taking this?" Well, I leaned back, resting my arm behind her shoulders. My voice dropped low, just enough for her to hear me. "You should have asked yourself why." For a moment, just a flicker, I saw it. The doubt, she didn't know what I meant yet, but she would. They all would. I glanced at the tree. Its lights blinking softly like a countdown, everything was wrapped perfectly. Or so they thought, but there was still one box left under the tree, white with gold trim, small and heavy. Tucked beneath the lowest branch, hidden just enough to be overlooked. It wasn't jewelry. It wasn't forgiveness. It was the truth neatly tied in a bow, and I couldn't wait to watch her unwrap it. Yet I said nothing. She scanned the document, her eyes darting across the words, her mouth moving slightly as she read line by line, clause by clause. I waited. It wouldn't take long, just a few seconds to get to the good part, and there it was. Her jaw stiffened. Her breath caught. "Jonah, what is this?" Her voice cracked slightly. I took a step closer, just enough for her to hear me clearly, but not close enough to be intimate. "Keep reading," I said. The air shifted. I could feel the energy in the room pull tight like the slow winding of a string. The conversations around us had gone quiet. Iris glanced over. Narrowing her eyes, Gerald straightened up. Zara and Talia leaned forward, like they were watching the next twist in a show they thought they already knew the ending to. Mira's fingers gripped the paper tighter. I could see her pulse sticking at her neck. Her lips moved faster now, reading, rereading, trying to make sense of what she was holding. The silence stretched, long and tense, until it snapped with 3 words. "You can't. This isn't legal." Her voice was sharper now, louder, cutting through the murmurs and dragging everyone's attention fully to us. I didn't flinch. "Actually," I said calmly, "it is." She looked at me like I'd just confessed to murdering the middle of church. "You forged this," she hissed. "You had to." "No," I nodded toward the bottom of the page. "Your signature, witnessed, notarized, dated. A month ago?" Her hand trembled slightly as she looked down again. "I've never signed this." "You did," I said. "You were just in too much of a rush to read what you were signing." She blinked at me. And I saw the panic bloom behind her eyes, that growing realization that she'd been